Risk tolerance is again based on, as we discussed, you can try and avert a risk, we can try and accept a risk, and we can try and avoid a risk. So there are different types of attitudes towards risk. So risk aversion, we can't, it's unwillingness to accept. So basically you are trying to avoid that. Neutrality is some level of risk is acceptable, but then you have, there's a medium ground. And then risk seeking is basically you're trying to accept the risk, you're trying to actually take the risk head on, and then assume that, okay, given that this risk is happening, what can I do? This is happening, this is for sure. So you try and allocate a budget. This is how sometimes most of these large multinational banks operate. For example, I don't want to give you the names, but there are huge number of multinational, international, multinational corporations and international presence banks, such as, I mean, the range, for example, from Deutsche Bank to HSBC to JP Morgan, and all these big, huge banks, Goldman Sachs and investment banks. They have got this budget allocated every year, where they say that I would allocate about, let's say, $1.5 billion just to kind of pay for any regulatory damages that are claimed by, let's say, SEBI, or the by the regulators of USA, because most of the US banks would actually, US regulators, like the Financial Conduct Authority that we have here, they would impose some kind of sanctions and restrictions on these banks, because they either did not follow the AML, the anti-money laundering. Yeah. So in terms of the recommendation, having done all that, in terms of the risk registration, risk assessment of the risk, and then trying to understand the impact, the probability, and then coming up with a potential attitude towards that, whether you're going to accept it, avoid it, or avert it, or whatever you call it as, then what you need to do is to come up with some sense of recommendation as to what we must do, either to kind of correct that risk that you already have encountered, or to prevent that from happening. Mostly it's preventive, because risk is not something that occurs, but it's a likelihood of something bad that is going to occur. So it's going to be proactive or preventive aspect of it, rather than mostly corrective. That's how it works. And recommendation could be in terms of how we're going to pursue the benefits, how we still continue getting the benefits of the value of what we're doing, even in spite of the risk coming through, or the risk happening. And then how we can try and make sure that we are trying to reduce the risk, the possibility of reduction of the risk. What are the mitigation strategies, for example? And then how we can try and again identify ways to help improve and manage these opportunities that we have been identifying internally and externally as well. And then obviously there's also the other thing that we discussed the other day. There's the aspect of do not do nothing, or do not do anything, basically, which means that you're not really, that's also a strategy. Sometimes you've got some things to do, you've got 100 things to do to improve, and you've got for example 50 things to do to kind of learn or keep doing something new. But then there is that one or two things that you still need to do, which is about status quo, which is about doing nothing. Just do nothing as an option is also available. So all of these are the strategies and the approaches that you would have to address the potential of the risk occurring, and then what is the likelihood that it is going to impact